Hey guys, I wanted to make a casual review of Resident Evil Requiem. Although this entry came back into the slower horror on some parts, I really enjoyed the game. In my opinion, it was actually a really great game. It did have a few features that I've said that I don't like stalkers and stuff like that, but I actually really enjoyed it. The game was divided into two different types of gameplay. The Grace sections and the Leon sections. Grace's sections are the more slower types, so like RE7, and Leon's were more action-oriented, like RE4. I think Grace's sections were a lot more polished. I feel like they were the main focus of the game, and I think they were the most enjoyable. Leon's, I didn't hate them, but there was something about them that I just didn't really like. I think they really paled in comparison to RE4. I don't know how to explain it. There's just something about the gameplay in this game that just doesn't feel as good as RE4. I don't know why, but it just feels that way. I actually feel like the game should have focused only on Grace. The whole game should have just been all Grace, no Leon. I guess her gameplay just felt better. It just felt good, and I just liked the way you navigated through everything as Grace. Obviously, they could have changed a few things, added a few more weapons, a few more ways to fight enemies, but I didn't hate Leon sections. I just feel like they were there more for like the fan service or whatever, you know, the fans, rather than because it really mattered. I think. I mean, I just feel like if you added more Grace and took away Leon, the game would have been fine. But yeah, my main complaints about the game are just Leon's gameplay not feeling as good as I'd like it to feel, and the fact that there were a few stalker sections, which, well, I've said it before, I'm not a fan of stalkers. I actually didn't mind it as much. I think this game actually worked the gameplay around the stalker rather than adding the stalker to the game. For example, it wasn't like I was dealing with a stalker and zombies at the same time. And if there was a situation where that happened, they give you mechanics to deal with that. You know, like if you're dealing with the zombies and the stalker at the same time, it's because you're doing something wrong. I still don't really like stalkers, but the girl was actually very palatable and actually quite fun in this game. So, you know, props to the devs for actually making a stalker fun to play with. This game introduces Grace, who is probably my favorite character in the Resident Evil series. She's insanely awkward and anxious, which makes her very relatable and just entertaining to watch as well. I think I've seen a few compilations of her stuttering. She like takes a long time to say stuff and will be super awkward even with like, what was her name again? I forgot her name. Emily, you know, the child, which is funny. Just funny. But despite her demeanor, she's actually a pretty fun character, a pretty cool character. I wouldn't mind having her be the protagonist in other games, and I would actually like more characters like her in general, just in other forms of media or games. I guess I just really like this kind of archetype. I am a fan of like Kobeni from Chainsaw Man. I don't know, I feel like people don't really like these types of characters for some reason, but I do. I really like them. The game's strongest point was definitely the Rhodes Hill section. I feel like the atmosphere and just the way you interact with the zombies at first had me hooked. This is where the survival horror is the strongest. Generally, like in RE2, I like to clear out all the areas of the game, especially at first. I don't really like to run around, come back later, stuff like that, like to deal with the zombies. But in this game, I feel like you are forced to conserve ammo and actually think about what you want to do. You have to rely more on like running away, hiding, picking which battles to fight and which ones to avoid. Of course, over time you are given enough resources to actually clear stuff out, but you're not really giving that leniency off rip. And even at a certain point you do, or at least I did feel like I would question myself, like, is it really worth it? At least at first. After like halfway through the game, you just kind of don't care anymore. You know, you're kind of safe almost to use all your ammo, but at first you're not really given that safety. As for the rest of the areas, I felt kind of whatever. The labs are okay, but they just weren't as creepy. Raccoon City was really boring. I think it's mainly because of the colors. I just hate the post-apocalypse theme. In my opinion, it's just super boring. I've never liked it in any form of media, movies, video games, anything. I just don't like it. I don't like sand, deserts, you know, anything that's like a orange, yellow, and like sort of grayish coloring. I just hate it. I just think it's really boring. So I didn't like Raccoon City because of that. I think if it had different color scheme, it would have been nice, but it didn't, and I didn't like it. the Rhodes Hill basement was also really good. Obviously I'm going to count that as part of Rhodes Hill because it is part of it. I think it was really creepy. It was a stalker section obviously, but it actually forced you to sort of manage how to deal with the stalker, with sort of routing electricity to different areas. And then it was just overall just a really creepy section, and I actually really enjoyed it, although it was really scary for me, and I'm not good with horror, so I did sort of play some audios in the background for me to listen to while I was dealing with some of the stuff there. But I don't hate the fact that it was really really creepy. I really liked it. It was actually, in my opinion, a challenge. They really did a good job with the stalker. Obviously they added a few new enemies. I'm not gonna mention all of them. I feel like most of them were kind of whatever, you know, like something new to deal with, which was fun, but overall nothing too crazy that I really cared about. I think really the more outstanding ones were the normal zombies, because I really like the concept of them reacting to their environment how they used to when they were alive. I guess zombies are pretty much dead, right? So when they were alive basically, or uninfected or whatever. I really like that mechanic. I thought that was really cool. Also, the zombies were just creepy. I loved the way their eyes bugged out. It was just super interesting to look at. Obviously there's like the subsections of zombies or whatever, you know, like the chef, the singers that have like, well, singers have special abilities because they scream and they make you disoriented. The chef is just kind of a tanky enemy. Then there was Chunk, or there were two Chunks, which are kind of interesting to deal with because you can't really run past them. You have to like run away from them. They weren't really difficult to deal with, but it was definitely a shock the first time you encounter Chunk. Obviously they added the blister heads, which are just the evolution of the zombies. I guess they're like the, I forget what it is. I think there was an enemy called Crimson Heads in the original Resident Evil, which I never played. So I think they're supposed to be based off that, which I thought they were cool. It was an interesting evolution. Some of the zombies used weapons, which I don't really mind if they're melee, but I hate the ones in Leon's section that had guns. I just feel like the concept of zombies and guns should not mix. I just don't like it. I just don't. I just hate it. I don't want to see zombies using guns. Even if they were really awkward, I just still don't like it. I feel like the rest of the enemies are kind of, you know, fine. They're fun. Obviously they did reintroduce Mr. X, which honestly I didn't really care for just because they didn't do much with him. They just sort of introduced him. There's a very tiny stalker section where he just, well, it's really linear. It's not really like he follows you. It's more like a chase section, really, not a stalker section. And then you fight him in a boss fight, which is really kind of the same as in RE2, just with a few extra moves. So it's kind of whatever. They reintroduced the lickers, but I feel like at the point they didn't introduce the lickers, they just didn't feel like a challenge. They just felt like another enemy to kill. Like even in Grace's section, you know, like it's really easy to deal with them. So they just didn't have the same oomph that they had back in RE2. Then the final boss was Gideon and Nemesis, or not Gideon and Nemesis, but Gideon, who turns out to have like some kind of Nemesis infection or something, which I didn't really get because I feel like, at least from my understanding, the Nemesis is like super adaptable and just is really difficult to kill, and that did not happen in this game. Gideon died very quickly and with just kind of a strong shot in the head with the Requiem, which I don't think should have killed him, but it did. Unless we find out in the DLC that he's still alive, which if he is still alive in some DLC, that would be cool, and it would actually be, I'd be forgiving of the fact that he kind of got quote unquote killed in the main story. But yeah, Gideon was kind of what I was talking about when I said I wanted to see more evolutions or transformations. While it wasn't as cool as I would have liked, because I would have preferred a more progressive evolution rather than he falls down and then transforms into a giant enemy, you know, something more with progression. It was still fun, but yeah, apart from that, obviously there were a few more enemies that I didn't really care too much for, but it had some variety. It was fun. And then I'm not really super good with talking about stories. I think I can talk about some of the elements. The story itself was good though. I was captivated. They add mystery with Grace's past and why she was so important, and I was actually very interested in finding out why. But in the end, nothing really matters. Grace is perfectly normal and she's not involved in anything at all. Which, to be fair, wasn't a bad thing. It was actually more funny to me than anything that all the enemies went through so much to try and find her and capture her, only to turn out that she didn't matter at all. But you know, I was interested. I liked Gideon as a character. It's kind of fun seeing him be all mad scientist everywhere. They did have a clone of Wesker, which ultimately didn't really matter they could have really had anyone in his role, because he didn't even have like a boss fight, which is weird. I really feel like they should have given him a boss fight, but they didn't. They killed him off in a cutscene, so it was kind of anticlimactic. And again, ultimately his role in the story wasn't like, sure, it was important, I guess, because he was one of like the main villains, but I feel like it was really done more for just the fans rather than because it mattered, which I don't mind too much, but it would have been nice if they did more with him, but they didn't, so I'm kind of indifferent. And apart from that, it was a decent story. I mean, I was okay with it. But again, I'm not really someone who's goes super in depth with that kind of stuff. But yeah, overall, it was a fun game. I enjoyed it. I really recommend it. I feel like you don't even have to, obviously if you've played some of the games, especially the remakes, you'll understand a little more of what's going on, and there will be more moments that are kind of like, oh, you know, I know what that is, or I know who that is, you know what I mean? But if you haven't played the games, you'll be fine. Like, I think this is kind of a beginner can play this game and they'll be fine. You know, they won't be super confused. Well, they will be a little bit, but you don't need to play the games to play this game. Overall, it was just a fun game. I really enjoyed it. I don't really see a lot of replay value in it, but I don't care about replay value too much. But I do feel like this isn't, like, I could imagine myself replaying some of the other games, like RE2 for instance, but this game, not as much. I don't know what it is, but for what it is, for a single playthrough, it was really fun. I really liked it. I think it's I'm not gonna claim to be like a Resident Evil fan who's played every single game or whatever. I know some people can be really weird about new Resident Evil fans and old ones or blah blah, but I thought it was a really good entry. Thought it was really fun. But yeah, pretty much it. It was a good game. I liked it. It was fun. Obviously, I hope we get DLCs. I hope we get more similar type, well, I guess RE7 is similar type of gameplay in RE8, but I guess gameplay in the same vein with the same sort of themes and stuff. I really hope they keep exploring some of the ideas they had in this game, like the zombies that have weird behaviors and stuff like that. But yeah, I had fun. I liked it. Yeah, anyways, thank you guys for watching, and bye.